everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. For today's video, I thought I would sit down and do a little bit of resume 101 for you guys, since it is almost the end of the semester, and I know that a lot of you who are following me are medical assistants or medical assisting students, and since it is the end of the semester, that may mean you are interested in looking at jobs and applying for them. So I figured I would come on here and just give you guys a little bit of my own resume 101. Keep in mind that everything I say could definitely be applied to any resume in the healthcare field or any other resume for that matter, but specifically I am going to be gearing it towards medical assistants. Most of the information that I am including in this is relative to being a medical assistant, but again, you can apply it to whatever field you are going into. And without further ado, let's get started. So starting off, I am going to try to include a resume example right here of what I am looking at and talking about, and I've kind of broken this up into three parts. The first part is going to be a general part, which I'm just going to generally talk about resumes, what they are, what the importance is, and stuff like that. And then I'm going to be dividing it up based on my resume, which is a left-hand column and a right-hand column. So starting off with general information, the big question everyone always asks is, why do you need a resume? And the answer for that is because a resume allows a prospective employer to learn a little bit more about you and your capabilities and your experiences in a very short document prior to doing something such as an interview. It's kind of like a mini biography that is simply work related. Another question people ask is, how elaborate does your resume have to be? And the answer to that is up to you. You can make your resume as elaborate as you would like. I personally think I have the perfect amount of information, and I really like the design that I went with. For those of you who are curious, I used Canva to get a template, and I highly recommend checking them out because they have a ton of different free templates to choose from, as well as ones that you can purchase. And there are a ton of other places that you can find templates. Moving on to talking about the two columns that I have on my particular resume, I am going to go ahead and start with the right-handed side. And right at the top, you always want to put your first and last name. I also choose to include my middle initial, and I always make sure that it is in a font that is relatively bigger than the rest of my resume, just so that it stands out. And since I am a credentialed medical assistant, I always like to put my credential under my name in a smaller font. Next up, you want to include your education history. This does not have to include high school. I literally only included my college education, and with this you want to do most recent degree to the least recent degree, and if you don't have multiple degrees, just simply put the one degree you do have. I graduated with my health science degree in 2018, which is why it is on the bottom, and then I graduated with my medical assisting degree in 2019. And in this education section, you want to include any degrees, certificates, or programs that you have completed. And I actually was a part of an honor society, so I did go ahead and include that under my most recent education as well. I also included the various semesters that I made the dean's list for. Next up is experience, and this is where I included my student externship because it was the only healthcare related experience that I had. So I made sure to put the externship facility that I attended, as well as the start and end date of my student externship, and then underneath that all, I put that I completed 160 hours. If you are someone who has experience with being a CNA or something like that, you can definitely include that there as well. I, however, was never a CNA, so that is why I simply only had my student externship there. Moving on, next up is certifications. And in certifications, I made sure to include my credential at the very top because it is the most important certification that I have. I am currently a certified medical assistant through the American Association of Medical Assistants. I have a ton of videos that I will leave down below related to becoming a credentialed medical assistant, and I highly recommend becoming a credentialed medical assistant because it is a really nice title to have. You get to add fancy letters after your name, and it'll definitely help you with finding employment. And with that, I made sure to include the expiration date of my certification as well as my certification ID. Then I went ahead and included my CPR certificate. I did a BLS course through the American Heart Association. And lastly, for certifications, I included my HIPAA and bloodborne pathogen certificates because during my actual medical assisting program, we did take certifying classes on both HIPAA and bloodborne pathogens, and this isn't something that you necessarily have to include, but I definitely wanted to include it because it just shows them that I am in fact informed on both of those things and will not need extra training in those areas. Next up is memberships, and not everyone may have memberships. I, however, as a student did get a membership. I got a membership to the American Association of Medical Assistants, which is who I am credentialed through, and I knew I wanted to become credentialed through them, so while I was a student, I did make sure to sign up and purchase a membership. Next up, we have volunteer work, and this is where you will put everything from volunteering at a homeless shelter, or a nursing home, or an animal refugee, and stuff like that. I personally am a field advocate for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, so I made sure to include the month and year that I became a field advocate through the present day, because I am still a field advocate for them. A lot of companies love seeing that you do volunteer work, and it does not need to be related to the healthcare field in any way, shape, or form. If you simply volunteered at an animal shelter, definitely be sure to include that, or if you volunteered in a kindergarten class, include that as well. Lastly, for the right-hand column is work history, and if you are someone who has had a lot of jobs, I would highly recommend only including the most important ones and ones that you were at for the longest amount of time. And like with the education section, you want to do them in descending order, so you want to start with the most recent one and then go down to the least recent one. Moving to the left-hand column, the first things you want to include are your contact information. For this, you simply want to include your cell phone number or best number that you can be reached at, your email, and I highly recommend making a semi-professional email. Don't use the personal email you created in like middle school that has a random name. I highly recommend making one that is semi-professional that you can use. And then under that, a lot of people think that they have to include their address. I highly recommend not including your address, but instead just include the city or town that you live in and the state, because most of these facilities that you are applying to for jobs do not need to have your full address until you're actually an employee. Then under that is references, and for references, I always write that my references are available upon request. And the reason I do this instead of just simply including them is because not all prospective employers actually require you to give a reference or necessarily want them at that time. And with references, you always want to check with the people before you actually put them as a reference. And so if a company does reach back out to you and want your reference information, definitely reach back out to your references and say, hey, I know you said I could use you as a reference. Is that still okay? And once they respond, yes, that is okay, then just give them a heads up that so-and-so company may be contacting them in reference to you as they have requested your reference information. And the last two things I include are both skill related. And first up, I like to list my clinical skills, and then after that, I like to list my transferable skills. And for clinical skills, you can just list out all the clinical related skills that you have been checked off of through either your medical assisting certification or degree program. I do have a list right here of the ones that I listed, and all of these are things that I successfully completed while I was obtaining my medical assisting degree in our clinical class. And you do not need to list out every single clinical skill that you have been checked off of and have learned. I like to include the important ones. And lastly are transferable skills, and transferable skills are basically skills that are non-clinical related and are things such as organization and punctual and stuff like that. They are things that can easily describe you as an employee, and I just included 9. So that is just a little bit of my own resume 101. Resumes can be super tricky, and it's not something you really learn in school, or at least I didn't personally, but wish I had. I definitely utilized my college's resources. We had a program through our library that would help you come up with a resume and stuff, so I did use some of those tips in this video. If you guys liked this video, definitely let me know in the comments down below, and if you are going to be using some of these tips in your own resume, let me know as well. While you guys are down there, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I upload new content regularly and would love it if you'd become part of our little family. Also, be sure to hit the bell so that you are in fact notified every time I do upload a new video. I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!